Hi there, I'm Anna, and welcome to the Woke Tea podcast, where we come together to create awareness about socially liberal causes such as anti racism, feminism, environmentalism, LGBTQ rights, and body positivity. Instead of debate, we create dialogue. We don't blame game, we demand change. We be the change. Let the revolution begin. Hi everybody, today we have Melati Wijsen on our podcast. Melati is an 18-year-old Indonesian Dutch activist and changemaker who founded Bye Bye Plastic Bags and has been leading the movement driven by youth since 2013. They together have banned plastic bags and straws and styrofoam in Bali. She is an alumni member of the world's Ocean Day Youth Advisory Council of the United Nations. She has spoken at TED and the United Nations, also been selected among Forbes' top 10 most inspiring women in the country, also been honored by Time as a part of annual list of the most influential teens in the world. Melati never fails to impress us.
Hi. Hi, it's so amazing to meet you virtually, but I absolutely love your work and all you and your sister have done over the years, and it's just so inspiring.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited for our conversation today, Anna.
Same. So let's get started with the first question. Corporate greenwashing has evolved so much from when it was first accused in 1986 by activist J. Westerveld, where hotels began asking guests to reuse towels, claiming that it was a company water conservation strategy, although it did not have any environmental actions. Now it's much bigger and it's everywhere. It's almost a prevailing marketing strategy to greenwash right from McDonald's and Starbucks to L'Oreal and H&M's recycling scheme. How exactly do we call this out?
Well, there is so much that we have to debuckle and tackle when it comes to greenwashing because, yes, it has become such a strong marketing tool for those companies that are not actually doing good to say that they're doing good. And what is very challenging is for the average population to understand what types of questions they have to be asking these corporates, what type of signs and actual like product material or process they have to question correctly, right? So when it comes to all of this, what we always say is actually open up the dialogue with the corporations and ask them, where are they, especially when it comes to plastic products, where are they producing the products? What is the lifetime of these products? And what happens after you're done using them? Right? Because that's what's important when we look at plastic pollution, where it's coming from and where it will end up. And oftentimes companies take that step back and say, well, that's not our responsibility, but look at this, we're doing this over here. And so that's where we really have to make sure that our vision and our focus is very clear, that just because they're doing one thing doesn't mean that it justifies the wrongdoing that they're doing every single day.
I think that too, because usually greenwashing is a big upcoming threat because people right now, once they're already aware about what the problems are, but they don't know how exactly to tackle them. And in their day-to-day lifestyle, if they're trying to make change, they'll be looking for products with eco-friendly in it and sustainability in it. But the products don't mention what exactly and how exactly they're making an impact. But they still do pick it up before asking the right questions, like you said.
Yeah.
So I think this is a big and upcoming threat, and I think that's a great way to tackle it.
And something, you know, that we can look out for is companies oftentimes, especially when it comes to greenwashing, right? Products that are not actually sustainable will use things like the color green or use really buzzwords like sustainability or eco-friendly, right? So the more generic it is, the more you should worry or actually question again, hang on a second, where and what is the story truly behind this product?
Asking the right questions is everything. So without any further ado, let's get to the second question. I actually came across your TED Talk and I love the story how you and your sister got 1 million signatures by thinking outside the box. And I'm sure my listeners will be so inspired and amazed as me once they hear it. So if you could just share it with our listeners, because I think it's a very sweet story and a very inspiring story too.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I mean, the goal was 1 million signatures, right? The goal was definitely to get that, but we didn't quite get to 1 million because we got the one signature that we needed, which was the governor's signature, before we reached our mark of 1 million signatures. But I think that was the sort of thinking outside the box characteristics, right? Because when we started, we were 10 and 12 years old. So for us, 1 million signatures sounded like a big number, but it didn't seem so impossible. And yet, when we got started, every signature, the amount that it counted was huge. And we just realized how long it would actually take us. And 6 years later, after being on the front lines, Bali finally implemented the ban on single-use plastic bags, straws, and styrofoam.
I think that was just amazing how you got from just children having an idea to somebody who's really making big change and a huge ban of plastic bags all across Bali. So that was just amazing and inspiring. So my third question for you is, you and Elizabeth have on your journey met a lot of fellow change makers who are doing amazing as you people. But which one were you most inspired by and why? Because you've met a lot of change makers like Jane Goodall and Ban Ki-moon. So which one was the most inspiring to you?
Whenever I get this question, I'm always like, I really have to, my brain goes into all the different directions because we have, like you said, met so many incredible individuals, whether that's on the political or world leader stage level to farmers and frontliners that we are seeing in our everyday work. So for me, the way that I guess I can answer this question of who inspires me the most or which was the most empowering encounter actually goes back to other young people, because I think that that's what actually sparks my biggest passion and hope and energy is when I see more young people standing up for what they believe in. And actually, I'm sitting right now in my office, and I have one wall that's completely dedicated to all of our Circle of Youth members, which is from our new project Youthtopia. And these Circle of Youth members are all individual young change makers between the age 12 and 25 years old, and they're from all over the world, focusing on all sorts of different topics. So it can be any one of the 17 SDG goals, whether that's access to education, agriculture, plastic pollution, refugee rights. And to be honest, it's very difficult for me to choose one specific person. But I think today, someone that really inspires me, and I'm just looking at my wall and there's one face that always stands out, that's Mohammed Al-Junde. He's the founder of Garsa, and that's a school that he created in Lebanon for the kids who live in refugee camps to actually go to school. And he literally has opened up my mind to so many different perspectives and views. And he's one of my biggest inspirations.
I think that is amazing. And it's so great to see so many change makers out there in the world, especially at your level. You must be meeting so many people. And I think it's great to know that there are more people out there and more people who are actually lighting the torch with you and standing with you to protect our environment and save the youth.
Yes.
So we go on to my fourth question. In your TED Talk, one more thing I wanted to just highlight in it. You mentioned how doing a hunger strike to get the governor of Bali to meet with you did also eventually work. This led to the ban of plastics in Bali by 2018. How exactly did that idea of doing a hunger strike pop into your head?
Well, this is a very old story that I miss telling sometimes. But when we first started, our first year, we gave a our first international talk, and that was located in India. And when we were there, we went to the private house of Mahatma Gandhi, and we learned about all the ways that he would create change, all the peaceful protests and ways that he actually empowered those in positions of decision making to make a difference or to mobilize the masses, right? And one of those ways happened to be a hunger strike. So by the end of the house tour, my sister and I simply said, you know what, we can do that too. We're going to go on a food strike. So we did that coming back home here in Bali. From sunrise to sunset, and within the second day we got a phone call from the governor's office, and next thing you know, we were picked up by our parents to head to the governor's office. And again, you know, I think that that's the thinking outside the box kind of solution that a lot of exactly, that a lot of our generation has. It's like, we know we're pressured by this time, that we cannot wait on the sidelines. We have to take action, and sometimes it just means thinking outside the box. And obviously we were surrounded by a lot of people that had our support and that were mentoring our health as well. But yeah, we were very privileged to be able to be in a position where we could go on a food strike, and it worked. It got the attention of the governor, and that opened the door for a very long-term relationship with the government.
I think people at our age, like the youth basically, today's youth, including me and you, we don't tend to solutions like hunger strike usually. We just do something like probably elevating the problem through social media or something like that. But it was an amazing initiative because it was quick thinking also, it was thinking outside the box. Also, you actually got the governor to meet with you. So I think that hunger strike did really work. And it's amazing because we don't usually tend to solutions like hunger strikes because we're like, oh my God, we can't do that. But it's amazing to see somebody so dedicated to the cause. Is Bye Bye Plastics and you together have tackled so many challenges along the way. But somehow, everything that I've gone through, I've read a lot about you and Bye Bye Plastics. But how come always you and Bye Bye Plastics come out stronger? It's amazing to see that if anybody is trying to, probably if it's a problem like a government, it's a problem getting a signed signature by the government or making the government write a petition to do something, you and your sister and Bye Bye Plastics come up with such amazing solutions like hunger strikes or standing at the airport to get signatures, which I find really fascinating and inspiring basically. It's very innovative and out of the box. So, which was the biggest challenges you faced in your entire journey, and what did you learn from it?
Well, I think the biggest challenge goes back to more on a personal level for sure, the long-term motivation, in the sense that my biggest frustration as a young change maker is that change was not happening fast enough, right? And I think this is something that all of us young people at the front lines can really relate to, because sometimes a simple solution, so we think, like saying no to plastic bags, can be done easily. And yet here we are still on the front lines campaigning. 6 years for us on the front lines, before us thousands of like-minded individuals, like-minded organizations that have been saying the same thing. So for me, the frustration is, and the biggest challenge was that change wasn't happening fast enough. But the hope and the way that I overcame that is remembering that, one, I'm not alone. And secondly, there are so many creative solutions that are already happening, whether that are communities, coming up with their own waste management systems, communities that are already producing alternatives to plastic. Those grassroots solutions are already here, and they're happening in all communities.
I think yes, that's a big way to tackle frustration, because I often feel very alone and scared because I'm having so many change makers. I do a lot of research usually on the change makers and what exactly they're fighting for. And I'm like, oh my God, these are the challenges that we face and are a great threat to humanity and youth. But then I see so many change makers I meet so many change makers on a daily basis, and their stories are just so inspiring. And then I just feel like I'm not alone out there, and I know at the time that it's a cause that will usually stay lit because we all are fighting for it. So yes.
Exactly.
On to my next question. I have heard a lot of your speeches and podcasts. So, what is your vision exactly for the future? Because I have heard a lot about you wanting things which will be, and you getting it. Because, example, for the bye bye plastic thing, you and your sister did a hunger strike, and you got a petition with like almost a million signatures on it. So, what's your vision for the future? How do you imagine the future to be after all the change that is taking place, already finished, and one thing that can be adopted worldwide, which will create a huge impact and be the game changer in the world of climate conservation?
Well, that's a very big question. And how much time do I have? No, I think, for me, what it comes down to, especially after being 7, 8 years on the front lines now and speaking to many different students around the world and young people really being the main audience, is because we realize that change happens in the classroom. The power of knowledge, when we really understand the problem, we will do everything in our power to find a solution. And so for me, if I could come up with one change, is that really in the education industry, currently the traditional education system is not empowering us to think outside the box, right? We spoke very much about that during this podcast. And I think what it comes down to is really changing that education system radically into being a space where kids can actually learn what is really happening outside the four walls of the classroom. What is happening when they go home, turning on the TV and understanding climate crisis, understanding why the refugee crisis is an issue, understanding a lot more than the traditional subjects that we are learning at school. And I think truly that if we were able to do this, for example, commit to at least 10 hours a week on environmental education, we would be raising a generation that is, one, prepared for the problems, but also ready to find solutions and actually creating the solutions. So the education industry is, for me, something that I'm heavily focusing on right now with my latest project, Youthopia, as well, and where we're already working with a lot of young change makers around the world to just create those programs already. And my vision for the future is a lot depending as well on that, because I think what a world that I see is that every young person feels like they can stand up for what they believe in and feel like they have the support and the resources around them. So I think that that's really the vision of a world that I would like to see, because I believe that young people can accelerate the positive change we wish to see.
I think that is so true, and that is already happening because young people have taken this problem into their own hands now and are dealing with innovative and amazing ways with it. Moving on to my next question. By the way, I loved your vision. Moving on to my next question. Are you an intersectional environmentalist and a feminist?
Yes, I think I stand for a lot of those topics, and every chance that I get, I try and say how interconnected all of these issues are, right? That's why I also mention a lot of the times these subcategories, not subcategories, these other categories. Oftentimes people label as just an environment issue or just a social humanitarian issue, but the interconnectedness is the narrative that we are missing currently. We're not seeing or understanding at a large scale how the climate crisis is affecting food security, how food security is affecting the health and safety of us as a global community. So I think that this is something that I'm really passionate about, and something that I hope as well that with Youthopia and everybody represented in our circle of youth, we can bring to the forefront, because we are seeing it already happen as well. More and more, it's becoming a headline that everybody's slowly starting to understand, but as I'm sure you would agree, not happening fast enough as well.
I think not enough is happening fast enough. And and that's so true. Actually, all these problems are small chains. I mean, they're interlinked, like black discrimination, then we have we have gender discrimination, then we have climate crisis. Everything, if you actually go into it and minutely, they all are connected. So yes, I do find that actually amazing, because if we do tackle one of the issues, all of the issues are impacted, and probably all of the issues will get better sooner too. So that's amazing, but we need to learn how to impact quick and fast. On the
Yes.
other, as my last question to you, I wanted to ask you, throughout your journey, I'm sure you must have had a lot of campaigns and rallies and speeches. Which one was your most memorable one and why?
Ooh, oh my goodness. They almost belong in their own categories as well, because a speech is completely different than an educational session or a strike or a rally. I must say, I do think that I think my favorite sort of encounters are two things. I really enjoy educational workshops, like really getting a small group of students, a very nice intimate group, and just brainstorming, conversing, sharing the strategic skills of how to be a change maker. I love those sessions because it allows me to kind of hear questions and discuss and kind of have that open forum of exchange. And then my like another thing that I really love is rallies and gathering on a mass scale with people. I think that's been really one of the hardest things with the pandemic, is that we're not able to gather the masses and march together. I think that, to be honest, was one of my most memorable feelings, of being with a large group and everybody chanting the same chants, and you can hear the footsteps and everybody's sweaty and it's hot and it's blaring sun, but you're all here together for the same outcome, and that's to see a better and just world. So I think that those are two of my most memorable and favorite moments.
I think what you said about the rallies and campaigns is so true. I have been to a lot of change making rallies and campaigns, and the feeling there is just so different. It's like you're no longer alone. There are like another million people who are out there marching with you for the same cause as you, and
Yeah.
they're supporting you. So I think that was very true. It just hits different.
Exactly.
And I'm so sad to say that, but this question brings us to the end of the podcast. Melati, you were so amazing and inspiring to us. Is there anything else you would like to share with our listeners?
Well, no, I think, this is a really great conversation, and I'm so happy that I got to speak with you and share a little bit more about my story. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you for listening to this episode. I hope the TV spilled could evoke some thought-provoking ideas, which I would love to hear. So mail me at thewoketeapodcast@gmail.com, or you can also find our Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram handles linked down in the description box. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Stay woke and stay tuned.